Hello, this is Tehila, High Priestess of the Coven of the Open Mind, and this is Intro to Magical Disciplines, Episode 2. This time we're going to talk about chaos. Chaos magic is wonderful and terrible. It is exhilarating and devastating. It is the balance of extremes. As far as the history of chaos magic goes, it's not really clear where the term chaos magic comes from. It's very clear that, there's a book that I'm going to recommend for this one. This is by Peter J Carroll. He's pretty widely accepted as the leading expert on chaos magic, if you will. He actually has a chart right here in the start of his book that explains kind of where chaos magic comes from. You may have heard of the Illuminati as like a hilarious conspiracy theory thing we make fun of on the internet, but the Illuminates of Thanatos is the origin. What has been dubbed the Illuminati in the future is kind of like a joke making fun of. It's a joke. But the Illuminati is based, the term comes from essentially this, the lineage that was founded by Peter J Carroll, which is the Illuminates of Thanatos. And so he abbreviates that as IoT. So here in this chart, you see shamanism at the top. And then that breaks down into basically, different shamanism from different parts of the world. And then, of course, it breaks down even further. And he doesn't detail a lot of the stuff that happens over, this is hard to do because it's backwards. A lot of the stuff that happens over on this side, he just leaves out. There is a lot there. It doesn't just go shamanism, sorcery, and witchcraft. There's kind of a lot of steps along the way that get to modern witchcraft. I talk about a lot of those in the first lecture series for the Wicca and Witchcraft 101 lecture, so head on over there if you'd like to hear more about Wicca. John Dee is probably the most influential writer for this stuff. Some of it comes straight out of Cornelius Agrippa's writing, and he was probably the oldest author to write about occult philosophy. I just found a PDF by him the other day, and I haven't had the chance to read it. I'm super excited to. But I've read some stuff by John Dee. Aleister Crowley was heavily influenced by John Dee, and many say that Gardner was influenced by Crowley. And I would say he was in practice, and some of his practices are a little similar to the Hermetic orders. Gardnerian witchcraft is similar to the Hermetic orders in the way that rituals are conducted, but different in so many other ways that to say that Gardner based Wicca off of the writings of Aleister Crowley is just short-sighted. But so the IoT is kind of a direct result of all of these Hermetic orders, and you'll see in here that it started with basically alchemy, which came from the Knights Templars, came from Gnosticism, which is a big topic in the Hermetic orders, and basically boiled down into Freemasonry, and eventually the Golden Dawn, and then finally the Illuminati. So this book is an introduction to chaos magic. You'll notice that it's on the required reading list for the Wicca and Witchcraft 101 course series, and that's because Peter J Carroll is an incredible author who says very concisely exactly what you have to do to experience some of these altered states of mind. Due to the fact that I tend to be very advanced spiritually despite my young age, it happens for me where I read authors sometimes and I'm like, okay, well, this is good, this guy, this part is bad. Anyone who's really advanced in their craft has probably experienced that, so I'm sure I'm not unique in that regard. But when I picked up this book by Peter J Carroll, you know, and I read the first half of Liber Null in one sitting, and I just was like, yes, yes, and yes. I was so excited to have found a book that really gets it right. You know, everything he says is spot on. He's an excellent author. Now, the book is broken down to discussing Liber Lux and Liber Nox. He proposes that there's a dichotomy that I think is actually the case between choosing to do what is wise and choosing to do what is powerful. If you feel like you want to exert a change on the world around you, then you are expressing power. If you accept that whatever happens in the world around you happens for a reason, then you are being wise, and you're either doing one or the other. So he says to not try to do both. Now, some people don't agree with that too. So there's a lot of different opinions there. But his book is broken down into discussing the path of wisdom, the path he calls Lux, the right thing, and then Liber Nox, which would be the dark, you know, the taboo path, if you will. And all that's very interesting. He doesn't get too much into talking about chaos until you get into the second book that's contained in this PDF or in this book, Psychonaut. And here he talks about the rights of chaos. He talks about what a chaos magician would be able to do. He gives some sample rituals and stuff. He uses Baphomet. Baphomet is essentially Satan. So, okay, so this book is great, and I would read it, but reading it is not going to be enough for you to understand what chaos magic is. It's not going to be enough for you to understand how dangerous it is to work with chaos magic. Peter J. Carroll does a terrible job in making you understand how dangerous it is. And there's a reason for that. So I've actually looked up, there's something that was published by a Hermetic order that's called the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram. And it's like something that every beginner Wiccan is like, oh, this is what beginner Wiccans do. But it's a terrible idea. If you actually read what it says to do and what it's doing, it's an evocation of deity spell that could go catastrophically wrong very easily. And it's funny because I can tell that it's intentional. I did this because they're trying to keep secret their arts. So they're saying anyone who's skilled enough to use our secret arts, our practices, who's good enough to use our practices would succeed, and then they would be harmed by the spell. Anyone who is not good enough to use the arts, who is basically innocent and just searching, would not be successful in casting it, and so therefore would not be harmed. So it's one of those, it's really cool, it's like a trap. And you can find that all over the Hermetic world. They guarded their secrets well, let's put it that way. But there are people like Carroll who thought that anyone who wanted to experience it, to dabble, should be able to. But he doesn't really give a full picture of the danger. So let me talk a bit about what chaos is, and then the danger will be evident. So chaos is non-existence. It is the force that can bring particles into existence from nowhere. It is the force that operates in the back of your head, that makes you, for no reason, want to suddenly drive into oncoming traffic. I call it the void. Many others call it that as well, or something similar. I have had the void inside of me since I was a child. So I was basically a born chaos magician. I used chaos magic probably before I did anything else. And so it was hard for me to learn the other forms of magic. And we'll talk a bit more about why as we go over the different forms and how they're different. And it's interesting that I'm even starting with chaos magic. Honestly, I didn't want to, but it's the one that everyone's requesting, so I feel like I should do it. So chaos is non-existence. It is the absence of life and death. It's non-existence. It's not able to be characterized at all, because any language that you would use to characterize it exists, and it doesn't exist. It is quite literally impossible to comprehend, and yet you can have some semblance of an understanding of it. you can experience it without not existing. It doesn't make sense. And in order to become a chaos magician, you have to leave the concept of making sense completely behind, because everything is a contradiction. And Carroll writes about this extensively. But basically, and if you want to know what part of the book to start with too, because it's not always obvious in Psychonaut, you can read it in any order. I could put in the description some specific chapters that are particularly illuminating, but basically you have to think about the world as a contradiction. You are simultaneously a physical embodied being who is incapable of doing things like jumping off cliffs and flying away and surviving that. We talked about the difference between magic and delusion, but you also don't exist. You also are not real. You're not physical. You have many lives, all existing outside of time and space and reality. I like to tell people that you are a far greater being than even you realize, if only you could remember. And that's true even for new souls, because the future is basically just things that I can't remember because they haven't happened yet. Now, you can remember them, though. You can remember all of them if you wanted. Every timeline, every possibility you could be aware of. And it's so chaotic that it will make you crazy to exist on that level. It is very challenging to balance ego with your divine persona when you're pursuing a path of chaos. I don't manage well. I have conversion disorder. So I have an issue where my brain converts stress into physical symptoms like hallucinations and paralysis. So I'm not mentally well. And I think it's because I was born with this awareness inside me, and it's so much part of who I am that I can't turn it off. Now, if you take the time to learn it properly and you're being very careful, then it's a great resource and it's very powerful magic. I hesitate to say that it's more powerful than other forms of magic. It's different. A lot of people will have an elitist attitude towards it because it's much more dangerous and harder to use than standard magic. Now, when we're talking about standard magic, we're talking about like witchcraft or even necromancy, where you are evoking life energy or death energy or invoking it. Chaos is the force. It's much more fundamental. If you remember back to the Kabbalah video, this is why I did that one first. Chaos is on the highest plane of existence. It's like what Atzilut would be if the Sephirot did not exist within each other, if they did not exist in harmony, if they were competing. And chaos exists outside of time and space and reality. So when you do chaos magic, you can change things in the past, present, or future, and in other realities. And now, in case you're wondering, well, it's probably become very clear by now, it's very easy to lose yourself to delusion if you're working with chaos. Now, there are other risks involved as well. So, demons, as they are depicted in Christianity, are the consciousness of chaos. If you stop existing, where do you go? Well, into non-existence, right? Well, where is that? What is that? It's nothing. It's the opposite of something. It doesn't even make sense to even try to think about it. What happens is that the person that is in your body would be unrecognizable to the people around you. You'd be so corrupted that you don't exist anymore, and there's no bringing you back. If the demon has gotten too far along in possessing you, there's no amount of exorcism that will save you. You will literally lose yourself. Your soul will be gone, ripped out of existence. And it happens outside of time and space and reality. So it would be eternal if you wanted to think about it that way. Though it's outside of time, so you could just, time doesn't pass at all, so I'm not sure that makes sense or not. Think about it for yourself and decide. But you could say it would be eternal. You could say that it would be painful if your soul could feel pain. So this is where the concept of hell comes from. eternal pain because your soul is being literally ripped apart forever. Like, that is the ultimate danger from working with chaos magic and with working with demons. And that's why I say in the Wicca 101 series, I don't know why anyone would want to summon a demon. I almost did it once, and then it turns out I didn't have to. Thank goodness. There are reasons why you might want to. I won't cover them here. That's getting too in depth, and this is already running long. So we'll talk about those in a future video series when people are more advanced in the basics. Then we'll be ready, and we'll do an advanced course on some of these things. I intend to have more courses, so we'll figure it out. But in the meantime, if you wanted to dabble in chaos, then here's what I'd say. Bear in mind that when you're working with chaos, things may not happen the way you anticipate. If you start to work with chaos, if you open a chaos sphere, then things will disappear at random. I lost my cell phone. I lost my keys. Found $900 in an unmarked envelope. I was at the beach and I lost my green shovel. And then I was walking down the beach and I found two exactly the same color, smaller shovels. That's chaos. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, it really doesn't, and it's totally random. But if you want to get involved in chaos, don't look up all these crazy rites and start invoking Baphomet, and please don't start like drawing down chaotic deities like Loki. It's very painful and it can hurt you and you can lose yourself. Okay, it's dangerous. Start by embracing chaos. What this means is every day do something unexpected. I don't have a typical anything. I can't go 2 days in a row doing the same things. This is why I can't produce a video every week on the same day if my life depended on it. Do something random. Do something contrary to what you would have done otherwise. So you always walk the same way. For no reason, walk a different way. Even if it's longer, just do it. Start to consider the contradictions in all things. So when you look at the sun setting and you see a line of red and then a line of purple and then a line of blue, don't see it like that. It's not red and purple and blue. It's red and blue. And the purple is a result of the colors blending. So it's both purple and not purple. And that's okay. It's an illusion, but it's not. And you have to embrace the fact that the world is really that contradictory. Some other beginner techniques. So when you're working with chaos magic, you can't have any thoughts or feelings at all. If you have thoughts or feelings, everything will go astray. So recently I did chaos magic because I was tired of living in this apartment complex that we live in now and feeling like they have discriminated against me many times, and so I feel like I don't belong here. And we're looking to buy a new house. And this is before we even looked to buy a new house. This was back when I was like still just feeling stuck. So I did a little bit of magic to basically help me feel more comfortable being here. And I did it, phrased it very carefully so that nothing bad would happen or come of it. But secretly inside of me, while I was doing this, I wasn't fully focused. My subconscious wandered. It's one of those do as I say, not as I do situations. And my subconscious was thinking, I hate it here. I want to leave. So even though I was saying and I was trying to will myself to feel, let's just stay here, let it just work out the way it's working out, I just couldn't. My subconscious didn't want that at all. And this is what I mean when I say chaos is inside of me. Like for most people, it's easier to once they get into the altered state, to just, once you're in the altered state, it's easy to guide yourself. And for me, it's like trying to tame a wild horse. But the result is that instead of things going well with my landlord, they came by at that same day, like not even an hour later, which was, remarkable to me because the spell worked immediately. And they said, oh, hey, we're going to evict you if you don't leave. So bad situation all around, so then I'm panicking and all this, but at the same time, I can also rest assured, I did this magic and I know that everything's going to work out exactly as intended, because chaos magic doesn't pull from conscious intent. And in my case, in most cases, doing what I did, things would go catastrophically wrong because you don't know what's going on inside your subconscious mind. Most people are not very attentive or aware of what's going on. And if you don't know yourself incredibly well, then you have no idea what's going to happen when you embrace chaos. I mean, people will die. You'll say, like, I want to come into money, and you're working with chaos instead of life magic. Life magic is more about just gain. So as long as you're not like purposefully going out of your way to curse someone, if you're just doing a spell for prosperity, it's going to come in the form of you getting money and nothing bad happening to anyone around you. You're doing chaos magic, someone's going to die, which is going to cause some lawsuit, which is going to allow you to countersue, and then you're going to have money. Like something ridiculous. Or your father will die and you'll get an inheritance. It's like, it doesn't work. It's like working with the Fae or working with demons, like, directly. Like, that's exactly what it's like. You have to be very specific and careful, because it doesn't necessarily do what you think it's going to do. In my case, so I know myself very well, and I know what's going on in my subconscious mind. In this case, I kind of wanted this, and Carroll talks about this in his book too, that you have to make sure your subconscious desires are aligned with your conscious ones. And I knew that I was feeling this way, and I just like didn't care because I'm a chaos magician, and that's like, I live on the edge, okay? But I'm telling you, when you're staring at the barrier between like sanity and insanity, and you're literally staring at it in the depths of your mind, and you're like, I could be crazy if I wanted. That's like, it's scary and it's dangerous. And you'll look at yourself in the mirror and you'll look hollow, like you don't exist, like you're empty. And it's terrifying. I don't understand why anybody would want to go past that barrier. So it's important to remember that if you don't know yourself perfectly well, chaos will corrupt you, period. Like, period. In my case, I knew what I was doing, even though I didn't know what I was doing. It's a contradiction, but it doesn't bother me because I work with chaos. So what actually happened was, now we're doing all this house finding, and we found the perfect home, and it's the perfect price, and so it's gonna be our new coven set, and it's gonna be amazing. And that's really how chaos works. So I did a spell to make my situation feel more comfortable. Be like, I want to feel comfortable in my current home, and instead it blew up in my face, but now I'm going to be in a better current home where I do feel comfortable. And that's more how chaos magic works. And if you notice, that's actually also how divinity works. When you pray for something, it comes to you, but not always in the way that you expect it to come. So that's because chaos is on the same level as divine energy. And then the next level down from that would be life and death and masculine and feminine in quad form. So when I say that I don't like to hear people say that it's more powerful, because while you can do a lot of really crazy stuff with it, and it is incredibly powerful, it's also incredibly dangerous and often unreliable unless you're like really, really skilled and you really know what you're doing. So I hope that gives you a good overview of chaos. I'm trying to think if I have any other notes. I don't think so. So if you have any questions, I realize I didn't really tell you how to do chaos magic, and I did that on purpose. And pretty much nobody tells you how to do chaos magic because it's so dangerous. And that's why Carroll is such a rare bird, because he basically wrote it all down for you. So if you want to do chaos magic, like I said, embrace chaos, embrace spontaneity, and find yourself. Learn how to get to a state of non-thinking, and make sure you always know what's going on in your subconscious mind. Until you're at that point, you're honestly probably not ready. I'd say most people are not ready to work with chaos until they're close to being second degree, if you care about degrees, if that helps you understand if you're ready or not. So let me know if you have any questions. Drop a comment, shoot us an email. Hopefully you guys like this lecture. And like I said, if you're interested in chaos magic, right here. And Peter J Carroll has lots of other books that I also have not thoroughly read, so I plan on reviewing some as well, and maybe devising a course, but we'll see. For now, thanks for joining us, and from all of us here at the Coven of the Open Mind, blessed be.